and welcome to this I-24 News Defense Special with a focus on the escalation between Israel and Hamas. After days of continuous airstrikes on numerous terror targets in the Gaza Strip, millions of Israelis are still living under the threat of rocket fire from Hamas. While thus far the focus has been aerial, the possibility of a ground invasion is still on the horizon. Before we look more in depth, here's a recap of the recent days.
Today, we face the risk of an all-out escalation in Israel and Gaza.
And joining me now is Brigadier General in the Reserves, Ephraim Eitam, former IDF division commander and a former Israeli minister. Thanks very much for being with us. I want to begin with the most recent infiltration of 13 Hamas members via a terror tunnel underground. How exactly are these tunnels located, and just how big of a threat are they?
First, we have to understand that this is one of hundreds of tunnels, wider, longer, bigger than that one, and they were designed and built in order to launch killing operations into the civilian area of Israel, and that to a great extent, represent the nature of this enemy. And I mean, we didn't have to have too much evidence like that because we have this rocket launching on the head of civilian population. But what I mean to say by that is that when we talk about ceasefire, humanitarian ceasefire, demilitarization of Hamas, we have to understand that hostility, killing, and using civilian people as their targets is the nature of this organization. It's deeply, inherently part of their ideology, and that is not about to disappear, and no ceasefire can really change it.
If no ceasefire can change it, let's move on to this current campaign. What else can be achieved without a ground operation at this point?
I think that fire and standoff weapons and air power came almost to its to the point, to the limit of what it can be used for, because carpet bombardments over this highly populated area is not something that Israel is willing to do or capable to do from all aspects, international, legal, and operational. So having that precise targets and shooting, which so far really minimize the collateral damage of civilian casualties, except of this tragedy yesterday of 4 children which were killed, that's almost come to its edge. And we see that the Hamas really improved, fortified its missile system, its headquarters, and most of the military system of the Hamas is deep in the underground. So that mutual sharing of fire between us and the Hamas will not bring and will not deliver that kind of decisive results, which was expected both by the Israeli population and by the Israeli government and military leadership. In order to defeat Hamas, in order to make sure that no more rounds are around the corner, a land operation is almost inevitable. Hundreds of tunnels of the kind which we were witnessing being used today in the morning, and many more launchers of missiles. If we don't come and dig them out, they will remain there. They will be used once and again. And you know, Hamas now tactically agree for humanitarian ceasefire, but no way that they will use this time to reorganize and compensate and repair what have been destroyed.
Mr. Eitam, so you say in order to really defeat Hamas, to really hit them hard, you do need a ground operation. So what would the main targets be of such a land incursion? How many soldiers would be needed to achieve a substantial result?
It's not a walk in the garden. That will be a fire. There will be fire. There will be casualties. But at the end of the day, that's what state has an army for. And I want to raise a personal angle. It's my boys who will know that be part of this ground operation if really being launched. And I don't do that with any happiness or, I would say, seeking for ground operations. But I think that the state of Israel needs to look at the broad picture. Hamas is, and this round is a great opportunity for us to demonstrate and to show all these terror organizations with territory who pretend to be states, which do not obey any international rules, any moral criterions accepted among civilized nations, to show them that there is a way to defeat them and not to accept this long strategy of attrition that at the end of the day will not allow Israel to function as a normal free state.
Mr. Ephraim Eitam, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
While the media is focusing on the number of dead and wounded in the Gaza Strip, the IDF released videos showing an Israeli Air Force pilot aborting airstrikes after identifying civilian bystanders near the targets. Here's more.
יש גם תנועה על הציר פה, איפה שאני מזיז עכשיו, וגם איפה ששני העיגולים יש אנשים נייחים.
כל האזור הזה מלא.
חבורה של ילדים.
אכיפה קיבלו חזל.
הרבה מאוד ילדים נראה.
כרגע יש איזה 15 איש בטווח של 10-15 מטר מהמבנה התואם.
רואה, מקבלת עוברים למטרה אחרת.
אתה רואה את התמונה שלי? כמה באים בצד השמאלי התחתון? יש שם ילדים על הגל, אפשר אותם משחקים? תחזור למטרה. בסדר? יש שם ילדים על הגל משחקים, וגם המסדרון הזה, של תנועה של אנשים כוסים בשם גורדים. יש שם עכשיו גם בן אדם. אני מכיר שהמטרה לא נקייה.
יש פה אנשים עכשיו.
מטרה לא נקייה. 3 אנשים עומדים בערך 5 מטר מה... יכול להיות ש2 מה-3 הם נשים.
קיבלתי כנראה חודמים. חדל.
Joining me now is Brigadier General in the Reserves Ephraim Segoli, former commander of the Palmachim Air Force Base and head of the Air Power and Asymmetric Conflict Research Center at the Fisher Institute for Air and Space Strategic Studies. Thanks very much for being with us. So we just saw a video that the IDF put out, one of several showing the challenges of airstrikes in this densely populated area. First of all, in this current operation, how would you sort of rate the performance of the Israeli Air Force and what happened yesterday with the 4 deaths on the beach?
Look, according to what I see, and I'm not directly involved in what's really happening, but according to what I see and hear, and sometimes I'm briefed, we are doing the best. The Air Force is doing the best he can in order to avoid what we call collateral damage, and such a tragic incident, which happens unfortunately, these kinds of events, will be thoroughly debriefed in order to maybe avoid future incidents like that. But again, that's just another opportunity to say that that's the tactic which is used by the other side. I mean, to put a playground above an ammunition bay, that's something that they do. Yeah.
When you're working with a situation where your enemy is using human shields, and it's one of the most densely populated areas in the world, what are the limitations of airstrikes, which is what the IDF has been focusing on so far?
Yeah. Look, the main limitation is again, it's not a limitation, but that's the concern, to avoid collateral damage, not to hit uninvolved. I mean, there are a few ways to describe people, but innocent or people who are not directly involved in that in the fighting against Israel. So we are looking for tactics and techniques, how to do it, how to warn them before, even though sometimes we lose the surprise effect, but we do it in order to avoid collateral damage.
Also, in terms of the surprise effect, how long? Take me into the timing of such an operation, because as we know, Hamas has consistently asked its citizens to ignore IDF warnings to leave the buildings, and often you can have somebody, I imagine, going up onto a rooftop at the very last moment before strike is set to occur. What is the time frame these pilots
You're
are
talking
actually
about a
working
specific
with?
operation or
Right.
the whole? Look, it can last between a few minutes if people get the telephone call, evacuate the building, or the signal of the missile on the roof, which we call a knock on the roof, and they do it, and it can take many hours, and the division can be stopped because the place was not evacuated, as we saw in the report before.
I want to look at something more general. You work a lot in the realm of asymmetrical warfare.
Yeah.
And a lot of times in conversations you hear this new form of asymmetrical warfare, but honestly it's no longer new. Asymmetrical warfare is perhaps the new form of war for some time now. How does a modern military like the IDF or any other prepare itself for this form of warfare where it's no longer facing a standard army?
Yeah, first of all, you're absolutely right. It's a new definition of an old war. We've been experiencing and we have seen similar wars for decades. In which state entities fought against non-state entities or against irregulars or against terrorists, and it had various names. The current name is sometimes asymmetric conflict. The problem is that, the big problem or the big challenge in this kind of operation that for some reason, the advanced, the developed is not able to defeat the small, the weak entity. It happened to us, it happened to the Americans in Afghanistan and in Iraq, it happened to the Soviets. Everyone is sure that if we behave like the Soviets, all of a sudden we'll be able to crush the enemy. The Soviets ran away from Afghanistan, fighting against irregulars. So there is a serious problem, a serious challenge in this kind of operations when the enemy, the small one, is fighting amongst the people, elusively against people.
It's amazing you see this kind of the money that's poured into a modern military, and something very inexpensive and very homemade can actually these days defeat a modern military. Brigadier General Ephraim Segoli, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
With growing global use of social media, Facebook and Twitter have become a battlefield of their own. Before we look at our next guest, a look at the war held on iPhones and computer screens.
العدو الصهيوني ليس لديه أي بنك أهداف، لديه
And joining me now is Lieutenant Colonel Peter Lerner, IDF spokesman for international media. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thanks for joining me here again. Now, we just heard in our last conversation, this is not a typical war between states. The idea of asymmetrical warfare of Hamas versus the IDF, two very different situations. How difficult is it to explain this situation to the international media?
I think with all that's gone on in the Middle East over the last 3 years, it's not too difficult. People understand that there is turmoil. They understand that there are state actors and non-state actors. People get it that there are extremists in this region and that Israel is not necessarily the bad guy. They also hold us, though, to a different standard because we are not that non-state actor, and that is part of the story that we need to convey.
I want to go to the most recent attempted infiltration through a tunnel. 13 Hamas militants stopped. We saw also a similar event on Zikim Beach before with an infiltration through the sea. How is the IDF dealing with this threat?
we have substantial forces on the ground. We have the capability to defend the surrounding communities, our military bases on the front, and indeed we have the technology and know-how and military know-how. We also have that supplements that, or is a basis of everything, intelligence that can give us the forewarning before these type of things happened. We're aware of tunnels. I've spoken to it extensively on I-24, that there are tunnels in this area, and we expect Hamas terrorists to try and exploit those and carry out the attacks. This is what happened in the early hours of this morning, but we were ready and we were prepared, and we had the forces to stop it.
This operation, compared to others in the past, we spoke over the last couple of weeks about how many strikes and so forth. Some argue, some criticize that Hamas leaders have still survived so far. They're clearly still able to send rockets. How successful has this operation been so far?
Well, clearly Hamas are pursued. They are not living in any sort of luxury. The operatives are under threat. Their institutions have been struck. So they are paying a heavy price for this activity, the actions and the aggression against the State of Israel. I think it's still a bit early to see what that impact will be, but perhaps today, during the humanitarian ceasefire, some of those leaders will come out of their holes, look around and see the situation of Gaza, and they'll have to look the people of Gaza in the eyes and really be accountable for what's going on.
I want to ask you about the IDF spokesperson unit in general. Hamas has launched its own site in Hebrew. It's clearly very adept at the PR war. How is the IDF spokesman adapting to this ever-changing situation, especially on Hamas's end?
Well, the IDF spokesperson's unit is at the forefront of all of the media landscapes. We have multiple languages. We have, the Israeli domestic media is extensive, and of course we have social media. We are on a proactive outreach activity every day, all day, 24/7, with a huge following online. People come to us to get real information. They don't come for us for the propaganda. When you follow our tweets, you're getting the real news, the real views of the IDF, and you can count on us. So when extraordinary things are happening, we see this huge influx of traffic, of people wanting to know what is the IDF saying about this specific issue. I think what it actually points out that we are a credible source. When I'm a spokesperson, and I would not compare myself to Hamas, but the Hamas spokespersons, they all have masks on. What type of credibility is that? We talk to people in the face, we tell them what we know, and we are relevant.
Lieutenant Colonel Peter Lerner will continue counting on you for updates as long as Operation Protective Edge lasts. Thanks very much for being with us.
Thank you.
And that's all the time we have today. For all the latest headlines regarding Operation Protective Edge, of course, find us online, i24news.tv. Thanks for watching.